that's prime opening there for an activist attack.
Hello, I'm John Janarone, editor-in-chief of CorpGov. Thrilled to be back here in New Orleans, Louisiana at Tulane, and I have with us a new friend from Forward Global. This is Skyler Minke. Skyler, thanks for joining. He's a director there. We've interviewed your colleague Brendan many times, of course. Thrilled to have you here. Let's just talk about the advisory world. So most of us are very familiar with investor relations and public relations firms, but there's a third leg that companies need to be thinking about. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the investigation side, right? And it's a great way for companies to have the insight and the information that they need to go forth, and whether it be defending themselves against an activist or just being equipped with all the tools that they need in their toolkit, so that the investor relations team and the public relations teams that they have can use that information so it's better prepare themselves against, whether it be shareholder activism or M&A activity or whatever.
It makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of, well, I'll call it turmoil in the government right now. Do companies need to be thinking about their relationship with various government agencies, and how do they go about that?
They absolutely should. And one of the great things about Forward Global is we actually have a little bit of a government relations team that can kind of help guide companies through that process. But you're absolutely correct that government relations and navigating that regulatory environment, especially as it changes on a seemingly weekly basis, is critical for companies, particularly those that are in highly regulated industries.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, because I feel like the government is changing shape by the minute. Yeah. So, you got to be on top of that, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me about succession planning. When a company, starts realizing that, eventually the CEO will have a successor and so on, what advice do you give, and how do you analyze that kind of situation?
Well, that's becoming a new favorite theme of activists, is to take aim at companies that have not planned for their CEO. I mean, you always have to be ready. And again, that's preparation. That's doing your legwork way beforehand, whether that be investigations or having those deliberations internally. But the companies that come out and a lot of times would say, we'll conduct an external review that'll take 6 months to a year. That's prime opening there for an activist attack. So you guys weren't plans. There is no plan for the company right now. There's nobody leading the ship. So
Skyler, we just interviewed before you came in a couple of proxy solicitors, and they both said, and this kind of caught me by surprise a little bit, that this volatility is actually perhaps going to engender more activism, whereas IPOs and M&A not so much, because they don't like those activities don't work that well when the VIX spikes.
Right, and again, activists are very much special situations, and what better way for a special situation than market turmoil? So you're going to have depressed valuations and things like that are going to be attractive for an activist to come in and maybe shake things up.
Makes sense. How about DEI? So this is again a government thing, right?
Yeah.
Trump seems to say, that's he blames DEI and all kinds of things. So what is DEI going to be the cornerstone of an activist argument anymore? Not so much.
No, but it's not going to be, but it's still an important facet for a diversity of thought, and to have that right mix, that right skills matrix on your board, the right composition of whether it be folks that have an M&A background or folks that have dealt with activists before. And I think maybe some of the old views of looking at DEI, at least for the time being, are going to be paused during this administration. But there are the other types of diversity, and once again, when you're navigating a market turmoil, you need to have everything lined up and covered, and diversity of thought's the main way to do that. So.
I want to ask you a question. So some companies have very public CEOs who are on TV all the time and so on. What's your take on that? Is that a good idea?
It can be a good idea depending on your industry, but if you're I would say in a regulated industry, or you're going through an M&A situation or something like that, maybe that's not the best strategy. You can avoid the limelight, avoid maybe some regulatory scrutiny from the government. That might be the most prudent.
Okay, this has been Skyler Minke, who's a director at Forward Global. Skyler, it was really terrific to meet you. We're big fans of your firm. Brendan, of course. We'll get him on again soon, but also great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I'm signing off from New Orleans. I'm John Janarone, editor-in-chief of CorpGov.